The sun had set on the planet of Zara. The only light was coming from the artificial lamps installed on the mining site. The crew was finishing up their shift, packing up their gear and heading back to their quarters. As they walked back, they heard a strange noise coming from the nearby forest. "What the hell is that noise?" asked Jake, the mining supervisor. "I don't know, but it sounds like it's getting closer," replied Kira, the geologist. Suddenly, a creature jumped out from the bushes, making them all jump back. It had long, sharp teeth and glowing red eyes. "Oh my god, what is that thing?" shouted Sarah, the technician. "Stay calm, everyone," Jake commanded. "We need to get back to the ship." They started to run towards the ship, but the creature was fast, and it was catching up to them quickly. "Get inside," yelled Jake as they reached the ship's entrance. They quickly shut the door behind them, but the creature was trying to break through. It was clawing at the door, making the entire ship shake. "We need to get out of here," said Kira. "We can't leave without the others," Sarah reminded them. "They're gone, Sarah," said Jake. "We need to get out of here while we still can." Just then, the door to the cockpit burst open, and the creature jumped inside. "Oh no!" screamed Sarah. Jake grabbed a laser gun from the wall and fired at the creature, but it had no effect. "It's not working," he shouted. Kira quickly ran to the console and started typing in codes. "I'm trying to activate the self-destruct sequence," she yelled. The creature was getting closer, its teeth bared and its eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Hurry up, Kira," shouted Jake. "I'm almost there," Kira said. Just then, the creature lunged at Kira, but she managed to dodge it and activate the self-destruct sequence. The ship started to shake as the countdown began. "We have to get out of here," yelled Sarah. They all ran towards the escape pod, but the creature was hot on their heels. "Get in," shouted Jake as they piled into the pod. The creature was clawing at the door as they launched into space. "Is it following us?" asked Sarah. Jake checked the radar. "No, it looks like we're clear." They all breathed a sigh of relief as they watched their ship explode in the distance. "That was too close," said Kira. "But what was that thing?" asked Sarah. "I don't know," said Jake. "But we need to report this to the mining company. We can't let this happen again." The escape pod drifted off into space. The crew left to wonder what horrors awaited them in the vast expanse of the universe. As they drifted through space, the crew couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. They had never encountered anything like that creature before. It seemed almost otherworldly. "We need to get back to Zara Prime and report this to the mining company," said Jake. "But what if that thing follows us?" asked Sarah. "We'll be prepared for it this time," said Kira, pulling up the mining company's communication channel on the console. "This is the Zara Mining Company, how can I assist you?" said a voice on the other end. "We have an emergency situation," said Kira. "One of our mining ships was attacked by a creature, and we barely escaped with our lives." "Describe the creature," said the voice. "It had long teeth and glowing red eyes," said Sarah. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "That sounds like the Xerxes creature," said the voice. "It's known to inhabit that region of Zara. We'll send a team to investigate." "We need to warn the other mining crews," said Jake. "Understood," said the voice. "We'll send out a warning immediately." The crew breathed a sigh of relief. At least they had warned the other mining crews, and the mining company was taking action. But as they drifted through space, something caught Kira's eye on the console. "What is it?" asked Jake. "It looks like there's a distress signal coming from a nearby planet," said Kira. "We can't ignore it," said Sarah. "We don't know what's out there," said Jake. "It could be dangerous." "But what if there are people out there who need our help?" said Kira. Jake hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, let's investigate the distress signal." The crew set a course for the planet, their hearts pounding with excitement and fear. They didn't know what they would find there, but they knew they had to help if they could. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, they could see that it was covered in dense jungle. "Can you locate the source of the distress signal?" asked Jake. Kira worked the console, and a blip appeared on the radar. "It's coming from a clearing about a mile from here," she said. The crew grabbed their laser guns and headed out into the jungle, their eyes peeled for any signs of danger. As they reached the clearing, they could see a crashed spaceship, smoke billowing from its engines. "Is anyone there?" called out Sarah. There was no response. They cautiously approached the ship, their guns at the ready. As they reached the entrance, they could hear a strange noise coming from inside. "What is that?" asked Kira. Jake took a deep breath and stepped inside, his gun raised. Suddenly, a figure lunged at him from the shadows. Jake fired his gun, and the figure fell to the ground. As they got closer, they could see that it was a human, his eyes glowing red just like the creature they had encountered on Zara. "What the hell is going on here?" asked Sarah. "I don't know," said Kira. "But I have a feeling we're about to find out." As the crew looked around the inside of the crashed spaceship, they saw more of the glowing-eyed humans lying on the ground. Some were dead, while others were barely alive. "What could have done this to them?" asked Jake. "I don't know," said Kira, examining one of the bodies. "But it looks like they were all infected by some kind of virus." Sarah stepped closer to one of the infected humans, trying to get a better look. Suddenly, the human's eyes snapped open, and it lunged at her with incredible speed. Sarah barely had time to react, dodging the attack and firing her laser gun. The shot missed, hitting the wall of the ship and causing it to explode. "Everyone, get out of here," yelled Jake. The crew scrambled to the exit, dodging the infected humans as they made their way back through the jungle. They could hear the creatures chasing after them, their glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. As they reached the edge of the jungle, they saw their spaceship surrounded by the creatures. "We have to fight our way through," said Kira, firing her gun. The crew fought with all their might, trying to hold off the infected humans as they made their way to the ship. But there were too many of them, and they were quickly overwhelmed. "Go without me," yelled Sarah, as she was dragged away by one of the creatures. "We can't leave her," said Jake, trying to run to her aid. "We have to," said Kira, pulling him back. "She's gone." The crew managed to make it to the ship, but they knew they couldn't leave the planet without finding a way to stop the virus from spreading. "We need to find the source of the virus and destroy it," said Kira. "But where do we even start?" asked Jake. Kira thought for a moment, then remembered something she had seen in the ship's computer. "There was a research facility on the other side of the planet," she said. "They might have been working on a cure." The crew set a course for the research facility, hoping that they weren't too late to stop the virus from spreading. As they landed at the facility, they could see that it had been abandoned for some time. But as they explored the labs, they found something that made their blood run cold. A scientist had been working on the virus, trying to create a weaponized version of it. "We have to destroy this lab and everything in it," said Jake. Kira nodded in agreement, and the crew set to work, using their laser guns to destroy the facility. As they made their way back to the ship, they knew that they had prevented the virus from spreading any further. But they also knew that they had lost Sarah, and that her sacrifice had been in vain. "We have to warn the mining company about this planet," said Kira, as they lifted off from the planet's surface. "We can't let anyone else suffer like this." The crew sat in silence as they flew back through space, haunted by the memory of the glowing-eyed creatures that had taken Sarah from them. They knew that they would never forget what they had seen, and that it would haunt them for the rest of their lives. As the crew made their way back to Earth, they couldn't help but wonder what had caused the virus to spread so rapidly on the planet they had just left behind. They all agreed that they needed to conduct further research and investigations into the virus to ensure that it never spread to any other planet. After a few days of travel, they finally landed on Earth and made their way to the mining company's headquarters. They were immediately escorted to a meeting with the CEO, who was eager to hear their report. "What did you find on that planet?" asked the CEO. Kira stepped forward, her expression serious. "We found a virus that had infected the entire human population on the planet. We managed to destroy the source of the virus, but we lost one of our crew members in the process." The CEO's expression turned grave. "This is very concerning. We need to ensure that this virus never makes its way to Earth." "We agree," said Jake. "We need to conduct further research and investigations to determine the cause of the virus and how it spreads. We also need to find a way to prevent it from spreading to other planets." The CEO nodded in agreement. "I will allocate resources for your team to conduct further research and investigations into this virus. We cannot let something like this happen again." The crew left the meeting feeling relieved that they had been heard and that the mining company was taking the virus seriously. But they also knew that there was much work to be done to ensure that the virus never spread beyond the planet they had just left behind. As they made their way back to their quarters, Kira turned to Jake. "We need to ensure that Sarah's sacrifice was not in vain. We need to find a way to prevent this from happening to anyone else." Jake nodded in agreement. "We will continue to work on finding a cure and preventing the spread of the virus. We owe it to Sarah and to all the other victims of this virus." The crew went to work, dedicating themselves to finding a cure and preventing the spread of the virus. They knew that it would be a long and difficult journey, but they were determined to succeed. And as they worked, they couldn't help but think of Sarah and the sacrifice she had made to ensure that they could complete their mission. Months passed and the crew worked tirelessly to develop a cure for the virus. Finally, they made a breakthrough and developed a vaccine that could prevent the virus from spreading. Kira was thrilled with the progress they had made. "This is amazing. We can finally put an end to this virus and prevent it from ever spreading again." Jake smiled at her. "Yes, we have come a long way. And it's all thanks to the hard work and dedication of this team." Just then, they received an urgent message from the mining company's headquarters. "We have received reports of a similar virus outbreak on a neighboring planet. We need your team to investigate and contain the virus before it spreads any further." Kira's heart sank. "Not again. We can't let this happen again." Jake nodded in agreement. "We need to act fast. We can't let the virus spread beyond that planet." The crew packed their equipment and prepared to leave for the neighboring planet. They knew that this would be a tough mission, but they were ready for it. As they arrived on the planet, they quickly realized that the situation was much worse than they had anticipated. The virus had already spread to most of the population, and they were struggling to contain it. Kira and Jake worked tirelessly to administer the vaccine and contain the virus. But they soon realized that it was too late. The virus had mutated, and the vaccine was no longer effective. Kira turned to Jake, her eyes filled with fear. "We need to get out of here. This virus is too dangerous. We can't risk bringing it back to Earth." Jake nodded in agreement. "You're right. We need to leave now." As they made their way back to their ship, they could see the devastation that the virus had caused. They knew that they had failed in their mission, and that the virus was now beyond their control. As they lifted off from the planet's surface, Kira couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness and defeat. "We tried our best, but it wasn't enough. The virus won." Jake put a comforting arm around her. "We did everything we could. We will keep working on finding a cure. We can't give up." Kira nodded, determined to keep fighting. "You're right. We can't give up. We owe it to the victims of this virus to find a cure and prevent this from ever happening again." And with that, the crew set their sights on finding a cure for the mutated virus, determined to never let it spread beyond the planet they had just left behind. Days turned into weeks, and the crew worked tirelessly to find a cure for the mutated virus. They tested countless combinations of antivirals and vaccines, but nothing seemed to work. Kira sat at her workstation, staring at the test results in front of her. "I don't know what else to try. We've exhausted all our options." Jake walked over to her, a determined look on his face. "We can't give up. We have to keep trying. We owe it to the victims of this virus to find a cure." Just then, the communications system beeped. They received a message from an unknown source. The message read, "I have information on a cure for the virus. Meet me at the coordinates I am sending you." Kira and Jake exchanged a skeptical glance. They had received many false leads in the past, but they couldn't ignore the possibility of a cure. They decided to investigate and set a course for the coordinates in the message. As they landed on the planet, they were greeted by a hooded figure. The figure handed them a vial and spoke in a low voice. "This is the cure for the virus. You must deliver it to the planet where the outbreak occurred." Kira and Jake were skeptical but took the vial nonetheless. As they boarded their ship, they could feel the weight of the responsibility on their shoulders. They knew that the fate of the neighboring planet rested on their success. As they arrived on the planet, they administered the cure to the infected population. They held their breath as they waited to see if it would work. To their relief, the cure was effective. The virus was contained, and the population slowly began to recover. Kira and Jake were overjoyed with their success. They had found a cure for the mutated virus, and they had prevented it from spreading beyond the neighboring planet. As they made their way back to Earth, Kira turned to Jake with a smile on her face. "We did it. We found a cure for the virus. We can finally put an end to this nightmare." Jake grinned back at her. "Yes, we did it. And we couldn't have done it without the dedication and hard work of this team." The crew arrived back on Earth to a hero's welcome. They had saved countless lives and prevented a catastrophe. They knew that their work was not over, but they were happy to celebrate this victory. Kira and Jake looked at each other with a sense of relief and accomplishment. They knew that they had made a difference, and they would continue to work tirelessly to ensure that the virus never spread again. As Kira and Jake basked in the glory of their success, they received a distress call from a nearby research station. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Research Station Delta 12. We have a virus outbreak. We need immediate assistance." Kira and Jake exchanged a worried glance. "Not again. We have to go help them." They quickly packed their equipment and headed to the research station. As they arrived, they saw the devastation that the virus had caused. Kira and Jake worked tirelessly to contain the virus, but they soon realized that this was not the same virus as before. It was a new strain, more dangerous and more deadly than anything they had ever encountered. As they struggled to find a cure, they could hear the sound of the virus spreading. The infected were turning into something else, something beyond human. Kira turned to Jake, her eyes filled with fear. "We have to get out of here. This is beyond our control. We can't let this virus spread any further." Jake nodded in agreement. "You're right. We have to leave now." As they made their way back to their ship, they could hear the infected howling in the distance. They knew that they had to act fast if they wanted to survive. Kira looked at Jake with a sense of urgency. "We have to find a way to stop this virus before it's too late. We can't let it spread beyond this research station." Jake nodded, his face grim. "We'll keep working on finding a cure. But for now, we need to focus on getting out of here alive." As they lifted off from the planet's surface, they could see the infected crawling towards their ship, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Kira and Jake exchanged a worried glance. They knew that they had not seen the last of this virus. The fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders, and they were running out of time.